Tonight, we leave the safety of the shore behind and journey into the vast, open ocean. For centuries, sailors crossing remote seas occasionally encountered a sight so unsettling that it became the foundation for some of history's greatest maritime mysteries. A ship drifting alone, its sails still standing, its cargo untouched, its meals left unfinished, and not a single crew member anywhere on board. These vessels became known as ghost ships. Some were eventually explained through storms, accidents, disease, or harsh conditions at sea. Others remain mysteries even today. And before we begin, let me know in the comments what city you're watching from tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. Every story, every memory, and every place matters. And together we keep history alive. Now let's begin. Tonight, we'll explore the most famous ghost ships ever discovered adrift upon the world's oceans. We'll investigate the legendary Mary Celeste, examine abandoned vessels found in distant waters, and discover the real challenges faced by sailors during long voyages across dangerous seas. Along the way, we'll uncover how maritime legends were born, why ghost ship stories captured the imagination of generations, and what modern historians believe may have happened aboard these silent, drifting vessels. So settle in, relax, and allow the sounds of the modern world to fade away. Let the gentle rhythm of the waves, the creaking of wooden ships, and the distant glow of lonely lighthouses guide you softly into the past. And together, let's explore the haunting history of the ghost ships found adrift. Part 1. Life at Sea in the Age of Sail, the Isolation of Ocean Travel. As the first light of dawn appears beyond the horizon and the ocean stretches endlessly in every direction, we begin our journey aboard a sailing vessel crossing the open sea during the Age of Sail. Long before satellites, radios, weather forecasts, engines, or modern navigation systems, the world's oceans represented one of the most isolated environments a human being could experience. For sailors leaving port in the 17th, 18th, or 19th centuries, stepping aboard a ship often meant disappearing beyond the known world for weeks, months, or even years at a time. Once the coastline faded into the distance, there would be no immediate communication with home, no rapid rescue in emergencies, and no certainty about what awaited beyond the next storm. The sea possessed a unique ability to separate people from everything familiar. Endless horizons surrounded them. The nearest land might be hundreds or thousands of miles away. In this vast and unpredictable environment, sailors developed a culture shaped by endurance, discipline, skill, and a deep respect for the power of nature. To understand why ghost ships fascinated later generations, we must first understand the world in which such mysteries occurred. We must step aboard the vessels themselves and experience the realities of life at sea. Imagine standing on the deck of a merchant ship preparing to depart a busy harbor in the early 19th century. The docks are crowded with workers loading cargo. Families gather to say farewell. Crates, barrels, ropes, and supplies fill every available space. The captain reviews final preparations while officers inspect equipment and navigation instruments. Above, sails hang ready to capture favorable winds. For many crew members, this departure represents the beginning of a voyage whose outcome cannot be predicted. Some sailors have crossed oceans many times before. Others are embarking on their first journey. Yet all understand that once the ship leaves harbor, the world changes dramatically. The Age of Sail depended entirely upon natural forces. Wind determined movement. Weather influenced schedules. Ocean currents shaped routes. Unlike modern ships powered by engines, sailing vessels could not simply proceed in whatever direction they desired. Captains studied seasonal wind patterns and navigational charts carefully. Successful voyages required knowledge accumulated over generations of maritime experience. Sailors learned to read clouds, observe wave behavior, and recognize subtle environmental signs indicating approaching weather changes. Their survival often depended upon these skills. Life aboard ship followed strict routines. Every crew member possessed specific responsibilities essential to the vessel's operation. Sailors climbed rigging to adjust sails, maintained equipment, cleaned decks, handled cargo, and stood watch throughout day and night. Work was physically demanding. Ships operated continuously, meaning tasks could arise at any hour. Storms ignored schedules. Changes in wind required immediate responses. Discipline remained crucial because mistakes could endanger everyone aboard. Space was limited. Merchant vessels carried cargo, supplies, and crew within relatively confined environments. Privacy was almost non-existent. Sailors slept in shared quarters, ate together, and worked side by side for extended periods. Relationships formed quickly under such conditions. Friendships developed. Disagreements occurred. The social dynamics of shipboard life reflected the realities of close confinement. Cooperation was not merely desirable, it was necessary. Every voyage depended upon collective effort. Food represented a constant concern. Before refrigeration, preserving provisions for long journeys required careful planning. Salted meat, dried foods, hard biscuits, and other durable supplies formed the basis of many diets. Fresh food became scarce as voyages progressed. Water had to be stored in barrels and rationed appropriately. Spoilage remained a persistent challenge. Meals were often repetitive, yet they provided essential sustenance for physically demanding work. The quality of provisions could significantly influence morale. Health posed another major challenge. Medical knowledge during much of the age of sail was limited compared to modern standards. Injuries occurred regularly. Sailors worked with heavy equipment, climbed tall masts, and operated in dangerous weather conditions. Illness could spread rapidly within confined quarters. Scurvy, caused by vitamin deficiencies, affected many crews before its causes became understood. Even minor ailments could become serious when professional medical care remained distant. Ships sometimes carried surgeons, but resources were limited. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of ocean travel was its isolation. Imagine standing watch during the middle of the night. The ship moves steadily through darkness. Stars fill the sky from horizon to horizon. The sea appears infinite. No other vessels are visible. No lights mark distant settlements. Only the sounds of wind, waves, and creaking timbers accompany the experience. Such moments could inspire awe, but they also emphasized vulnerability. Sailors understood how small their ship was compared to the vast ocean surrounding it. Navigation required extraordinary skill. Before modern technologies, captains relied upon celestial observations, charts, compasses, and mathematical calculations. Determining position at sea involved careful measurement and interpretation. Errors could have serious consequences. Missing a destination by even a small margin might add weeks to a voyage or place a vessel in dangerous waters. Navigators therefore occupied important positions within maritime society. Weather remained one of the greatest uncertainties. Storms could appear with little warning. Powerful winds threatened masts and sails. Massive waves challenged even experienced crews. Hurricanes, typhoons, and other severe weather events posed particular dangers. Ships survived many storms through skill and determination, yet some voyages ended in disaster. The sea commanded respect because it possessed immense power capable of overwhelming human efforts. Despite these challenges, maritime travel connected the world. Ships carried goods, people, information, and ideas between continents. Trade networks expanded. Exploration continued. Economies depended upon reliable transportation across oceans. Sailors therefore occupied essential roles within global systems. Their labor enabled connections between distant societies. As the morning sun rises higher above the endless sea, the reality of shipboard life becomes clearer. It is a world defined by routine and uncertainty, cooperation and isolation, skill and risk. The ocean offers beauty and opportunity, yet it also demands constant vigilance. Understanding this environment helps explain why stories of abandoned ships captured public imagination so powerfully. In a world where every voyage involved challenges, the discovery of a vessel drifting alone without its crew seemed both possible and deeply unsettling. The stage is set for the mysteries that will follow. As the sun climbs higher into the sky and our vessel continues across the open ocean, the true nature of maritime isolation becomes increasingly apparent. During the age of sail, sailors experienced a level of separation from the outside world that is difficult to imagine today. Modern travelers remain connected through communication technologies capable of transmitting information instantly across continents and oceans. Sailors of earlier centuries possessed no such advantages. Once a ship disappeared beyond the horizon, those aboard entered a world governed by distance, uncertainty, and patience. Days blended into weeks. Weeks stretched into months. The sea became both workplace and home, while the vessel itself served as a small floating community isolated within an immense environment. Imagine a voyage crossing the Atlantic Ocean during the 19th century. Departure from port brings excitement and anticipation. Crew members remain occupied with preparations and adjustments. The coastline remains visible for a time, offering reassurance that familiar land still exists nearby. Gradually, however, the shore fades from sight. Within days, nothing but water surrounds the ship. The horizon forms a perfect circle in every direction. This visual experience remains remarkably consistent regardless of location. Whether near Europe, Africa, or the Americas, sailors crossing open oceans often encounter the same endless expanse of sea and sky. Such isolation influences perception of time. Shipboard routines provide structure, yet monotony can become a challenge. Watches divide day and night into manageable segments. Tasks repeat according to necessity. Sails require adjustment. Equipment demands maintenance. Navigation observations must be recorded. Meals occur at regular intervals. These routines help sailors maintain focus, but they also emphasize the repetitive nature of long voyages. Without changing scenery or frequent contact with new people, days may seem remarkably similar. Psychological resilience, therefore, becomes as important as physical endurance. Sailors develop coping mechanisms suited to maritime life. Conversation provides entertainment. Stories circulate among crew members. Songs accompany work. Games occupy free moments when conditions permit. Reading becomes valuable for those possessing access to books. Religious observances offer comfort and meaning. Communities aboard ship create cultural practices helping individuals manage extended periods of isolation. The ocean itself contributes to this experience. Unlike landscapes on land, the sea changes constantly while appearing superficially similar. Weather alters colors and moods. Calm conditions produce mirror-like surfaces reflecting the sky. Storms transform the environment into a landscape of motion and noise. Sunrises and sunsets create spectacular displays. Marine life occasionally appears alongside vessels. Yet despite these variations, sailors spend much of their time surrounded by open water. The psychological effect can be profound. Some individuals find the experience peaceful. Others struggle with confinement and monotony. Encounters with other vessels therefore carry special significance. A ship appearing on the horizon breaks routine and provides opportunities for communication. Captains exchange news, information regarding weather, trade conditions, political developments, and navigational hazards passes between crews. Such meetings remind sailors that they remain part of a larger world despite their isolation. Yet encounters are not always friendly. Unknown vessels can also represent potential threats. Determining intentions becomes an important aspect of maritime awareness. Nighttime at sea often intensifies feelings of isolation. Imagine standing on deck beneath a clear sky illuminated by countless stars. Away from artificial light, celestial objects appear with extraordinary clarity. The Milky Way stretches overhead. Constellations guide navigation. The sea reflects moonlight in shimmering patterns. These scenes inspire wonder, yet they also emphasize distance from familiar environments. Many sailors describe profound emotional responses to such experiences. The ocean encourages contemplation because it removes many distractions present on land. Superstitions flourish within this context. Maritime culture develops numerous beliefs concerning luck, weather, and omens. Some practices emerge from practical experience. Others reflect attempts to understand uncertain circumstances. Sailors face risks beyond their control, including storms, illness, and accidents. Superstitions provide frameworks for interpreting events and managing anxiety. Whether believed literally or not, they become part of shipboard culture. The possibility of emergencies further shapes life at sea. A damaged mast, leaking hull, illness outbreak, or severe storm can transform routine into crisis within moments. Because assistance may be unavailable, crews must rely upon their own resources. Training and preparation become essential. Every sailor understands that survival depends upon collective competence. This awareness strengthens social bonds while reinforcing discipline. Cargo vessels face additional pressures. Commercial success depends upon completing voyages efficiently and safely. Delays can prove costly. Weather may force route changes. Equipment failures require repairs. Markets fluctuate while ships remain at sea. Captains balance economic objectives against safety considerations. Decisions carry significant consequences for owners, crews, and investors alike. As afternoon sunlight sparkles across the waves and the ship continues its journey through open water, the extraordinary nature of maritime life becomes increasingly clear. Sailors inhabit a world unlike any other. They exist between continents, separated from ordinary society by distance and circumstance. Their experiences combine routine labor with constant awareness of uncertainty. Isolation shapes perceptions, relationships, and culture. The ocean demands adaptability while offering moments of remarkable beauty. This environment provides the foundation for ghost ship mysteries. When a vessel disappears or is later discovered abandoned, investigators must consider the realities of life at sea. Isolation complicates communication. Emergencies unfold beyond immediate observation. Evidence may be limited. Small incidents can produce unexpected consequences. Understanding these conditions helps explain why certain maritime mysteries proved so difficult to solve. For now, however, our ship sails onward beneath a vast sky. The crew continues its work. The horizon remains unchanged. Somewhere ahead lies one of the most famous mysteries in maritime history, a vessel found drifting across the Atlantic Ocean with no crew aboard. To understand that mystery, we first needed to experience the world in which it occurred. The ocean has provided that context, and the stage is now set for the discovery of the ship that would become known throughout the world, the Mary Celeste. Part 2. Discovery of the Mary Celeste, the empty ship mystery. As the morning sun rises above the Atlantic Ocean and casts golden light across the rolling waves, we arrive at one of the most famous maritime mysteries ever recorded. Few ghost ship stories have captured the imagination of generations quite like that of the Mary Celeste. More than a century and a half after its discovery, the vessel remains synonymous with unexplained disappearances and abandoned ships drifting alone at sea. The facts of the case are remarkable enough without embellishment. A seaworthy ship was found sailing through the Atlantic Ocean. Its cargo remained largely intact. Its provisions were still aboard. Personal belongings remained in place. Yet the captain, his family, and every crew member had vanished without a trace. No signs of violence could clearly explain what happened. No definitive evidence revealed where the missing people went. The ocean offered only silence. To understand why this mystery became so enduring, we must return to the year 1872 and follow the events that transformed an ordinary merchant voyage into one of history's most famous maritime puzzles. The story begins not with mystery, but with routine commerce. The Mary Celeste was a merchant brigantine, a two-masted sailing vessel built to transport cargo across oceans. Like thousands of ships operating during the 19th century, it formed part of a vast network connecting ports around the world. The vessel had already experienced a long and eventful history before becoming famous. Originally launched under a different name, it underwent ownership changes, repairs, and modifications over the years. By 1872, it was a respected commercial ship capable of carrying significant cargoes across long distances. Nothing about its appearance suggested that it would one day become the subject of endless speculation. Imagine the bustling waterfront of New York Harbor in early November 1872. Ships crowd the docks. Workers load cargo. Captains review manifests. Merchants negotiate contracts. Amid this activity, the Mary Celeste prepares for a voyage destined for Genoa, Italy. Its cargo consists primarily of industrial alcohol stored in barrels. The shipment is valuable, but not unusual. Merchant vessels routinely transport such goods across the Atlantic. Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs commands the ship. Experienced and well-respected, Briggs possesses a reputation for competence and professionalism. Accompanying him are his wife Sarah and their young daughter Sophia. 7 crew members complete the complement. Together, they represent a typical maritime community preparing for a transatlantic crossing. The departure appears uneventful. Weather conditions are favorable. Supplies are loaded. Final inspections are completed. Families bid farewell. The ship leaves New York and begins its eastward journey across the Atlantic Ocean. For those aboard, the voyage likely seems routine. Similar crossings have been completed countless times before. Challenges are expected, but nothing suggests impending disaster. The Mary Celeste sails into the vast ocean, gradually disappearing beyond the horizon. Weeks pass. Somewhere upon the Atlantic, the vessel continues its voyage. We know surprisingly little about what occurs during this period because no survivors remain to provide first-hand accounts. The ship's logbook, one of the most important sources of information, records entries up to a certain point before falling silent. This absence of information contributes significantly to the mystery. Historians and investigators possess only fragments of evidence, forcing them to reconstruct events from clues rather than testimony. Now imagine the morning of December 4th, 1872. Another vessel, the Dei Grazia, sails through the Atlantic Ocean roughly halfway between the Azores and Portugal. The crew notices a ship visible in the distance. At first, nothing appears especially unusual. Ships frequently encounter one another at sea. Yet as the hours pass, certain details attract attention. The vessel's movements seem irregular. It does not respond normally to signals. Something feels wrong. Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Grazia decides to investigate. As the two ships draw closer, concern grows. Experienced sailors understand maritime behavior. Ships at sea follow recognizable patterns. The vessel ahead appears strangely unattended. Eventually, a boarding party is dispatched. What they discover will become one of the most famous scenes in maritime history. Picture the boarding sailors climbing onto the deck of the Mary Celeste. The Atlantic stretches endlessly around them. Wind moves through rigging. Sails remain partially set, yet no one appears to greet them. No crew members emerge from below. The ship feels eerily quiet. As the search continues, the realization becomes unavoidable. The vessel is abandoned. The details are unsettling precisely because so much seems normal. The cargo remains aboard. Food supplies are present. Personal possessions have not been systematically removed. The crew's quarters contain everyday items, suggesting ordinary life interrupted unexpectedly. Navigation equipment is largely intact, though certain instruments and the ship's lifeboat are missing. There are no obvious signs of piracy. No evidence indicates a violent struggle involving the entire crew. The ship itself remains seaworthy despite minor damage and some water in the hold, conditions not uncommon for merchant vessels of the era. Investigators later note that the last logbook entry places the vessel near the Azores several days before discovery. This creates a gap in the timeline. What happened during those missing days? Why would an experienced captain abandon a ship that appeared capable of remaining afloat? Where did the crew go after leaving? These questions emerge immediately and remain central to the mystery. The atmosphere aboard the abandoned vessel fascinates observers. Meals were not literally left steaming on tables, as later legends sometimes claimed, yet there were signs that ordinary routines had been interrupted. The absence of people contrasted sharply with the presence of their belongings. Human activity seemed to linger in the environment despite the disappearance of those responsible for it. Such scenes naturally inspire speculation because they challenge expectations. Ships are designed to transport people. Finding one without its crew creates an unsettling contradiction. The Dei Grazia sailors eventually sail the abandoned vessel to Gibraltar, where formal investigations begin. Authorities recognize the unusual nature of the case immediately. Maritime law includes provisions regarding abandoned vessels, and salvage rights create financial incentives. Yet the circumstances surrounding the Mary Celeste raise questions extending far beyond legal procedures. Newspapers soon report the story. Public interest grows rapidly. An abandoned ship carrying valuable cargo across the Atlantic captures imagination in ways few ordinary maritime incidents could. As sunlight sparkles across the Atlantic waves and the empty ship continues its journey toward Gibraltar, the mystery deepens. The physical evidence provides clues, but not answers. Every observation seems to generate additional questions. The Mary Celeste has transformed from a merchant vessel into a puzzle. Its silent decks and missing crew invite speculation. The stage is now set for one of history's most enduring investigations. As the Mary Celeste is guided toward Gibraltar under the control of the Dei Grazia crew and news of the discovery begins spreading through maritime circles, the mystery rapidly captures public attention. The late 19th century was an era deeply fascinated by exploration, technology, and the unknown. Newspapers eagerly reported unusual events, and few stories were more intriguing than that of a ship found adrift with every person aboard missing. The Atlantic Ocean had long inspired both respect and fear. It connected continents while concealing countless secrets beneath its vast surface. Against this backdrop, The discovery of the abandoned brigantine seemed almost designed to spark curiosity. Yet what made the story so compelling was not merely that the crew had disappeared. It was the combination of ordinary details and extraordinary circumstances that surrounded the case. Imagine arriving in Gibraltar in December 1872 and hearing reports of the mysterious vessel. Harbor workers discuss the story. Merchants exchange theories. Sailors compare the case with other maritime incidents. The Mary Celeste rests at anchor while officials examine evidence. Everyone wants answers. Why would Captain Briggs, an experienced and respected mariner, abandon his ship? Why would he take his wife and young daughter into an open boat in the middle of the Atlantic? What danger could have seemed so immediate and severe that leaving the vessel appeared safer than remaining aboard? The investigation begins with careful examination of the ship itself. Authorities inspect cargo, equipment, documents, and physical conditions. They search for evidence of criminal activity, mutiny, piracy, or natural disaster. The findings are intriguing because they fail to support many obvious explanations. The cargo of industrial alcohol remains largely intact. Valuable items are still aboard. Piracy therefore appears unlikely. Pirates typically seek profit, and abandoning valuable cargo contradicts expected behavior. Similarly, widespread violence leaves few convincing traces. Although minor irregularities are noted, investigators do not discover clear evidence of a major struggle. The ship's condition becomes a central focus. Reports indicate that some water is present in the hold, but not enough to threaten immediate sinking. Merchant vessels often carried water within their hulls. Pumps existed to manage such situations. The Mary Celeste shows signs of wear consistent with a transatlantic voyage, yet remains fundamentally seaworthy. This observation complicates the mystery significantly. If the vessel was not sinking, why leave it? Attention turns to the missing lifeboat. Its absence strongly suggests that the crew departed intentionally rather than being swept overboard simultaneously. Navigation instruments are also missing, indicating that whoever left expected to continue traveling and potentially navigate elsewhere. These details imply an organized evacuation rather than sudden catastrophe. Yet, organized evacuation raises additional questions. What circumstances convinced experienced sailors to abandon a functioning ship in the open ocean? The ship's logbook offers limited but important information. Entries describe routine progress during the voyage. Weather conditions appear manageable. Nothing recorded before the final entry clearly predicts disaster. Then the record ends. Historians often describe this silence as one of the most haunting aspects of the case. Logbooks serve as maritime diaries documenting daily life at sea. The abrupt absence of further entries leaves investigators staring into an informational void. Whatever happened occurred after the final recorded observations. Newspapers quickly recognize the story's dramatic potential. Reports circulate throughout Europe and North America. Readers become fascinated by the image of an empty ship drifting across the Atlantic. Public imagination fills gaps left by missing evidence. Some accounts remain relatively factual. Others introduce embellishments. Over time, certain details become exaggerated or entirely invented. Stories emerge claiming meals remained untouched on tables, clocks continued ticking, or personal belongings were abandoned mid-use. While many such claims lack documentary support, they prove remarkably persistent because they enhance the mystery's emotional impact. The case also reflects broader cultural attitudes toward the sea. During the 19th century, oceans remained vast spaces where events could occur beyond immediate observation. Communication limitations meant that ships often disappeared from public awareness for weeks or months. When something unusual happened, investigators frequently lacked witnesses. The Mary Celeste exemplified these challenges. Modern forensic techniques did not exist. Satellite tracking was unimaginable. Authorities relied upon physical evidence and testimony gathered after the fact. Uncertainty was therefore unavoidable. Captain Benjamin Briggs becomes an important figure within discussions of the mystery. Contemporary accounts describe him as experienced, responsible, and deeply committed to his profession. There is little evidence suggesting recklessness or poor judgment. This reputation makes the decision to abandon ship even harder to explain. If a less experienced captain had commanded the vessel, some observers might attribute events to error or panic. Briggs's professionalism encourages investigators to assume that he acted for reasons he considered compelling. The human dimension of the mystery remains particularly poignant. The disappearance involves not only sailors, but also a family. Sarah Briggs and young Sophia vanish alongside the crew. Their fate becomes intertwined with the broader puzzle. Newspapers and readers naturally focus upon this aspect because it transforms the incident from a purely maritime mystery into a human tragedy. What happened to them after leaving the ship? Did they remain together? Did they hope for rescue? The absence of answers gives the story emotional depth beyond its technical details. As weeks turn into months, theories proliferate. Some propose piracy despite limited evidence. Others suggest mutiny, though the known facts provide little support. Natural explanations involving weather, navigational errors, or fears related to the cargo gain attention. Each theory attempts to reconcile available evidence with human behavior, yet none resolves every question completely. The mystery endures because multiple explanations remain plausible while definitive proof remains absent. The Mary Celeste itself eventually returns to commercial service. This often surprises people familiar only with the legend. The ship was not preserved as a monument or retired immediately. It continued operating because, despite its association with mystery, it remained a functional vessel. This fact serves as a reminder that the ship itself was never the central problem. The mystery concerned the missing people, not the vessel. The brigantine survived. Its crew did not return. As evening approaches over Gibraltar and conversations about the case continue in offices, taverns, and newspapers across continents, the Mary Celeste has already secured a place in history. The abandoned ship challenges assumptions about safety, decision-making, and survival at sea. Every clue seems significant, yet no clue proves decisive. The ocean guards its secrets carefully. Investigators possess fragments of a story without its conclusion, and so the mystery deepens. The discovery of the empty ship raises questions that facts alone cannot fully answer. In the next stage of our journey, authorities, journalists, sailors, and historians will attempt to solve the puzzle. The investigation will produce theories ranging from practical to fantastic, and the search for explanations will reveal as much about human imagination as it does about the Atlantic Ocean itself. Part 3. The investigation begins. Early theories and questions. As the winter sun rises over Gibraltar and illuminates the harbor where the Mary Celeste now rests under official supervision, the mystery enters a new phase. The abandoned vessel has completed an extraordinary journey. It crossed a significant stretch of the Atlantic Ocean without its captain, crew, or passengers, only to arrive carrying more questions than answers. Sailors who first boarded the ship were confronted with silence. Investigators now face something even more challenging: uncertainty. Every mystery begins with missing information, and the Mary Celeste presents precisely that problem. Physical evidence exists, yet the most important witnesses have vanished. The people who knew what happened are gone. As a result, officials, journalists, sailors, and ordinary citizens must attempt to reconstruct events from scattered clues left behind aboard the ship. Their efforts will generate some of the earliest theories about the case and establish patterns of speculation that continue more than a century later. Imagine entering a government office overlooking Gibraltar Harbor in late 1872. Reports concerning the abandoned brigantine-covered desks and tables. Witness statements from the crew of the Dei Grazia are being reviewed. Officials examine ship documents, cargo records, navigational logs, and inspection reports. The goal appears straightforward: determine what happened. Yet almost immediately, investigators encounter difficulties. The evidence does not point clearly toward a single explanation. Instead, it presents a series of possibilities, each containing strengths and weaknesses. This ambiguity makes the case unusually resistant to simple conclusions. One of the first questions concerns the condition of the ship itself. Why would an experienced captain abandon a vessel that remained afloat and capable of sailing? Authorities carefully inspect the hull, rigging, cargo, and equipment. Their findings reveal imperfections, but not catastrophe. Some sails are damaged. Water exists within the hold. Certain navigational instruments are missing. Yet none of these conditions alone seem sufficient to justify abandoning ship. Merchant vessels often encountered similar challenges and completed voyages successfully. Investigators therefore begin searching for factors not immediately visible. Attention quickly turns toward the cargo. The Mary Celeste carried more than 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, a substance capable of producing dangerous vapors under certain conditions. Could the cargo have played a role in the disappearance? Even without modern scientific understanding, 19th century observers recognized that alcohol cargoes presented risks. If vapors accumulated within parts of the vessel, they might create fears of explosion. Some investigators begin considering whether Captain Briggs believed his ship faced an imminent threat. Perhaps unusual sounds, odors, or other signs convinced him that remaining aboard was too dangerous. This idea possesses certain advantages. It explains why the crew might leave voluntarily. It also aligns with the missing lifeboat and navigation instruments, suggesting an organized departure rather than sudden disaster. Imagine a scenario in which Captain Briggs becomes concerned about conditions below deck. Unsure whether an explosion might occur, he orders everyone into the lifeboat temporarily while the situation is assessed from a safer distance. Such a decision would reflect caution rather than panic. Yet this theory introduces additional questions. If the ship never exploded, why did the crew fail to return? What happened after they departed? Weather provides another possible explanation. The Atlantic Ocean remains unpredictable even for experienced sailors. Storms, strong winds, and rough seas can create dangerous circumstances rapidly. Investigators review available weather information and examine logbook entries for clues. Perhaps severe conditions damaged equipment or created fears regarding the ship's stability. Maybe Captain Briggs believed the vessel was taking on more water than inspections later revealed. Human decision-making during uncertain situations often depends upon perceptions rather than objective measurements. A captain who genuinely believes his ship is sinking may act differently from someone possessing complete information. Yet weather theories also face challenges. The ship's condition does not clearly indicate survival of an exceptionally violent storm. Furthermore, experienced mariners generally understood that abandoning a ship at sea was extremely risky. Lifeboats offered limited protection compared to larger vessels. Remaining aboard was often safer unless immediate danger existed. Any theory involving voluntary abandonment must therefore explain why conditions appeared sufficiently threatening to justify such a decision. Suspicion naturally arises as well. Maritime history contains examples of mutiny, fraud, piracy, and criminal activity. Investigators consider these possibilities because unusual disappearances sometimes involve human wrongdoing. Could members of the crew have rebelled against Captain Briggs? Might pirates have boarded the vessel and removed everyone? Could insurance fraud somehow explain events? These questions attract attention partly because they introduce dramatic narratives. However, evidence supporting them remains limited. The absence of widespread violence proves especially significant. A mutiny involving multiple crew members would likely leave traces. Pirates seeking profit would probably remove valuable cargo or personal belongings. Insurance fraud schemes require cooperation and planning difficult to reconcile with known facts. While such theories cannot be dismissed immediately, they encounter substantial obstacles when compared against available evidence. The investigation is further complicated by the nature of maritime evidence. Events at sea often leave fewer traces than incidents occurring on land. Waves, weather, and time erase information. Witnesses may be unavailable. Distances are vast. The Mary Celeste illustrates these challenges perfectly. Investigators possess the ship, but not the people who occupied it during the crucial period. The ocean has effectively removed the most important pieces of evidence. Public interest grows rapidly as reports spread through newspapers. Readers follow developments eagerly. The idea of an abandoned ship appeals to imagination because it combines familiar elements with profound uncertainty. Everyone understands what a ship is supposed to contain: a crew. When that expectation is violated, curiosity follows naturally. Journalists recognize this appeal and devote increasing attention to the case. As a result, theories circulate far beyond official investigations. Some observers adopt cautious positions, emphasizing the need for evidence. Others speculate more freely. Conversations in ports, taverns, and homes generate new possibilities constantly. Each individual attempts to make sense of incomplete information. In doing so, they reveal something important about human nature. People dislike unexplained events. Faced with uncertainty, they search for patterns and narratives capable of restoring order. The Mary Celeste provides a perfect canvas for such efforts because its central mystery remains unresolved. As afternoon sunlight reflects across Gibraltar Harbor and officials continue reviewing documents, one fact becomes increasingly clear. Solving the mystery will not be easy. Every theory answers some questions while creating others. The evidence supports multiple interpretations without fully confirming any of them. The investigation has begun, but certainty remains elusive. The abandoned ship sits quietly at anchor, holding its secrets while the world searches for explanations. As weeks pass and discussions surrounding the Mary Celeste spread across continents, the mystery grows beyond the boundaries of official investigation. Newspapers publish articles. Maritime experts offer opinions. Ordinary readers develop personal theories. The abandoned brigantine becomes a topic of international fascination. Yet the more people examine the case, the more apparent its complexity becomes. Every clue seems significant, but no clue provides definitive answers. The investigation therefore enters a stage familiar to students of historical mysteries, a period during which competing explanations coexist, each attempting to account for the same limited body of evidence. Imagine a crowded waterfront tavern in a major port city during the winter of 1872. Sailors gather around tables discussing the latest reports. Some have spent decades at sea. Others are younger men eager to hear stories from experienced mariners. Conversations naturally turn toward the Mary Celeste. Could a rogue wave have swept people overboard? Might an explosion have frightened the crew into abandoning ship? Did some unknown disaster occur beyond the reach of observation? Every participant brings personal experiences and assumptions to the discussion. The result is a fascinating mixture of expertise, speculation, and storytelling. One of the most influential early theories involves fear rather than actual catastrophe. This distinction is important. Investigators increasingly recognize that human decisions are shaped by perceptions of danger, not merely danger itself. Imagine Captain Briggs hearing unusual noises from the cargo hold. Perhaps alcohol vapors create pressure. Maybe a barrel leaks. A loud sound echoes through the vessel. Concerned about the possibility of explosion, he decides to evacuate temporarily. The crew boards the lifeboat while remaining connected to the ship by rope. Then something unexpected occurs. The rope breaks. Wind and currents separate the boat from the vessel. The Mary Celeste continues sailing while the occupants of the lifeboat disappear into the vast Atlantic. Many historians later find versions of this theory appealing because it explains several key facts simultaneously. It accounts for the missing lifeboat and navigation instruments. It suggests an organized departure rather than panic. It also explains why the ship remained largely undamaged. Most importantly, it acknowledges that people sometimes make reasonable decisions based upon incomplete information. A captain facing perceived danger may choose caution even if the threat later proves less severe than expected. However, alternative explanations continue attracting attention. Some observers focus upon weather conditions. The Atlantic Ocean has claimed countless vessels through storms, rogue waves, and other natural forces. Perhaps severe weather-created circumstances not fully reflected in surviving evidence. A sudden squall might damage equipment, create navigational challenges, or convince the captain that abandoning ship represented the safest option. Maritime history contains numerous examples of experienced crews confronting unexpected environmental hazards. Yet weather theories face questions of their own. If conditions were severe enough to force abandonment, why does the ship appear relatively intact? Why are there no obvious signs of catastrophic storm damage? The Mary Celeste survived well enough to continue sailing for days without a crew. Such observations make it difficult to attribute events solely to ordinary weather, though extraordinary circumstances cannot be ruled out completely. Meanwhile, more dramatic theories begin circulating in popular discussions. Some people suggest piracy despite limited supporting evidence. Others imagine mutiny, secret conspiracies, or criminal schemes. The appeal of such explanations is understandable. Human conflict often provides satisfying narratives because motives appear identifiable. Villains and victims can be assigned roles. Stories gain structure. Yet investigators repeatedly encounter the same problem. Physical evidence does not clearly support these scenarios. The absence of theft remains particularly significant. Valuable cargo stays aboard. Personal belongings are not systematically removed. Pirates motivated by profit would likely take portable valuables at minimum. Similarly, mutiny theories struggle because they require assumptions regarding crew behavior inconsistent with known information. While not impossible, such explanations lack convincing proof. As public fascination increases, the mystery begins evolving in subtle ways. Details become exaggerated through repetition. Journalists compete for readers' attention. Storytellers emphasize unusual aspects. Certain claims enter popular circulation despite limited documentary support. This process demonstrates how legends emerge. Small embellishments accumulate over time, gradually transforming historical events into cultural myths. For example, later retellings often describe meals left untouched on tables, steaming cups of tea, or clocks still running precisely as the crew vanished. These images possess tremendous dramatic power because they suggest sudden disappearance. Yet many such details do not appear in the earliest official reports. They develop gradually as storytellers seek to heighten the mystery. The distinction between documented evidence and popular legend becomes increasingly important. The Mary Celeste therefore becomes more than an investigation. It becomes a lesson in how societies respond to uncertainty. Faced with incomplete information, people generate explanations reflecting their beliefs, fears, and imaginations. Some prioritize practical reasoning. Others favor dramatic possibilities. The mystery acts as a mirror revealing how different individuals interpret the unknown. Professional investigators confront a different challenge. They must evaluate evidence rather than preference. This requires accepting ambiguity when certainty is unavailable. Such restraint can be frustrating because definitive answers are emotionally satisfying. Yet historical inquiry often involves probabilities rather than certainties. The Mary Celeste exemplifies this reality. Multiple explanations remain plausible. None can be proven beyond doubt. As evening settles over ports across the Atlantic world and discussions continue beneath lantern light, the mystery remains unsolved. The ship has been found. The evidence has been examined. Theories have been proposed. Yet the central question persists. What happened to Captain Briggs, his family, and the crew during those missing days at sea? The investigation has succeeded in narrowing possibilities, but it has not eliminated uncertainty. Indeed, uncertainty may be the defining feature of the case. The ocean keeps many secrets, and the Mary Celeste appears destined to become one of them. Over the years, new generations will revisit the evidence, proposing fresh interpretations while debating older theories. Historians, sailors, writers, and enthusiasts will continue searching for answers. For now, however, the abandoned ship rests quietly within history. The official investigation has begun, but the mystery is only growing larger. Beyond the Mary Celeste, other ghost ships await discovery in our story, each carrying its own unanswered questions across lonely oceans. The sea is vast, and the legend of the empty ship is far from over. Part 4. The Carol A. Deering, Ships Lost Without Explanation. As dawn breaks across the Atlantic Ocean and pale light spreads over the restless waves, we leave the mystery of the Mary Celeste behind and journey forward into another chapter of ghost ship history. While the Mary Celeste remains the most famous abandoned vessel ever discovered, it is far from the only ship found drifting without its crew. Throughout the centuries, sailors have occasionally encountered vessels that seem to have been abandoned under mysterious circumstances. Some were eventually explained. Others remain subjects of debate. Among the most intriguing of these cases is the story of the Carol A. Deering, a large American schooner whose discovery in 1921 generated headlines, investigations, and countless theories. Like the Mary Celeste, the Carol A. Deering was found without a crew. Yet unlike the 19th century brigantine, this vessel belonged to a very different era. Steamships were becoming increasingly common. Radio communication existed. Modern navigation techniques had advanced significantly. And yet, despite these developments, an entire crew vanished, leaving behind one of the most puzzling maritime mysteries of the 20th century. To understand the significance of the Carol A. Deering, imagine the maritime world of the early 1920s. The First World War had recently ended. International trade routes were recovering. Advances in technology were transforming transportation and communication. Yet sailing vessels still played important roles within certain industries. The Carol A. Deering was one such vessel. Built in 1919, it was a 5-masted schooner impressive in both size and appearance. Stretching across the ocean with towering masts and expansive sails, it represented the culmination of centuries of sailing ship design. Although steam-powered vessels increasingly dominated maritime commerce, schooners like the Caroline Deering remained capable of carrying substantial cargoes efficiently. Picture the ship departing on one of its final voyages. Crew members move confidently across the deck. Officers oversee navigation. Sails capture favorable winds. The vessel appears strong and seaworthy. Nothing suggests that it will soon become one of history's most famous ghost ships. Yet maritime mysteries often begin this way. Ordinary voyages transform into extraordinary stories only after something goes wrong. The voyage that would make the Caroline Deering famous began as a commercial journey transporting cargo. The ship traveled between ports, crossing waters familiar to experienced mariners. However, reports later suggested that tensions may have existed aboard. Accounts from various sources hinted at disagreements involving officers and crew members. Such stories are difficult to verify completely, yet they became important because investigators searched desperately for clues that might explain later events. Whenever a ship disappears or is found abandoned, people naturally look backward, examining every known detail for signs of trouble. As weeks passed, the schooner continued its voyage. Along the way, it encountered other vessels and maritime officials. One notable interaction occurred when the ship passed near a lighthouse station. Observers reported unusual circumstances involving communications from the vessel. A crew member, rather than the captain, reportedly shouted messages indicating that the ship had lost anchors and required assistance. This behavior attracted attention because it seemed unusual. Why was a crew member speaking on behalf of the ship? Where was the captain? Did the interaction indicate deeper problems aboard? At the time, no one realized these observations might later become significant pieces of a larger mystery. Now imagine the morning of January 31st, 1921. Along the coast of North Carolina lies a region long feared by sailors, the Outer Banks. Known as the graveyard of the Atlantic, these waters contain shifting sandbars, strong currents, and dangerous weather conditions. Countless ships have been lost there over the centuries. On this particular morning, observers notice a large schooner stranded on Diamond Shoals, one of the region's most hazardous areas. The vessel is identified as the Caroline Deering. At first, the sight is concerning but not extraordinary. Ships occasionally run aground. Rescue efforts are organized. Yet as authorities attempt to investigate, conditions complicate access to the vessel. Rough seas make boarding difficult. Days pass before a thorough examination becomes possible. When investigators finally reach the schooner, they encounter a startling scene. The ship is empty. No captain, no officers, no crew. The vessel sits stranded upon the shoals with no sign of the people who had sailed it there. The discovery immediately evokes comparisons to earlier ghost ship cases. Yet the Caroline Deering presents its own unique characteristics. Certain equipment is missing. Personal belongings have disappeared. Lifeboats are absent. The galley appears to show signs of recent use. Food remains aboard. Navigation instruments are gone. Some evidence suggests an organized departure. Other details seem more difficult to interpret. As with the Mary Celeste, investigators are left with fragments rather than answers. The location of the discovery adds further complexity. Diamond Shoals is a dangerous area known for shipwrecks. Could environmental conditions explain the disappearance? Perhaps the crew abandoned the vessel after it became stranded. Yet if so, where did they go? Why was no trace of them found? Rescue boats operating in such waters faced substantial risks. The ocean offered many opportunities for tragedy. Still, The absence of definitive evidence prevented easy conclusions. Public interest grows rapidly. Newspapers report the story with enthusiasm. Readers are fascinated by ghost ships because they challenge ordinary expectations. Ships are designed to transport people safely across oceans. Finding one without its crew transforms a practical object into a mystery. The Caroline Deering becomes a perfect example. Its imposing size makes the disappearance seem even more remarkable. An entire crew has vanished from a vessel large enough to support complex operations. How could this happen? Investigators begin examining multiple possibilities. Mutiny becomes one frequently discussed theory due to reports of tensions aboard. Piracy is considered, though evidence remains inconclusive. Natural disasters, storms, mechanical failures, and navigational errors all receive attention. Some observers even speculate about criminal conspiracies extending beyond the ship itself. The early 20th century was a period of social change, political unrest, and occasional smuggling activity along coastal regions. Such contexts influenced the kinds of theories people consider plausible. As sunlight brightens the waters surrounding the stranded schooner and investigators continue their work, the mystery deepens rather than diminishes. Every clue seems capable of supporting multiple interpretations. The empty ship remains silent. Its crew is gone. The Atlantic provides no explanations. Once again, historians and investigators find themselves confronting one of the ocean's most persistent characteristics, its ability to conceal the final moments of those who travel upon it. As the investigation into the Caroline Deering continues and newspapers across the United States devote increasing attention to the story, the schooner gradually transforms from a maritime incident into a national mystery. The early 20th century was an era fascinated by technological progress. Radio communication connected ships and shore more effectively than ever before. Navigation techniques had improved. Governments maintained increasingly sophisticated systems for monitoring maritime activity. Yet despite these advances, an entire crew had vanished without leaving a clear explanation. The case challenged assumptions about safety and control at sea. It reminded people that even in a modernizing world, the ocean remained capable of producing mysteries. Imagine investigators boarding the stranded vessel for a second time, determined to uncover additional evidence. The ship itself becomes a crime scene of sorts, though no one knows whether a crime actually occurred. Every object is examined carefully. Personal effects, equipment, cargo arrangements, and signs of recent activity are documented. The goal is simple: reconstruct the final days aboard the schooner. Yet reconstruction proves difficult because evidence is incomplete. Some items are missing. Others provide ambiguous clues. The ship seems to tell several different stories simultaneously. One of the most discussed aspects of the case involves the missing navigational instruments and lifeboats. These details suggest that the crew may have left the vessel intentionally rather than being swept away suddenly. If people board lifeboats and take navigation equipment, they likely expect to travel elsewhere. Such behavior implies planning. Yet planning introduces another question. Why leave it all? The Caroline Deering had certainly encountered trouble, but investigators struggled to determine whether conditions justified abandoning ship completely. Mutiny quickly becomes one of the most popular explanations. Reports concerning disagreements between officers and crew members circulate widely. Some accounts describe tensions involving authority and discipline. Maritime history contains examples of mutiny, making the theory plausible at first glance. Perhaps dissatisfied crew members seized control of the vessel. Maybe the captain and officers were removed. If so, what happened afterward? Did the mutineers attempt to escape? Did further misfortune strike them after leaving the ship? The theory possesses dramatic appeal, which helps explain its popularity. Yet direct evidence remains limited. Much of the discussion relies upon inference rather than proof. The possibility of piracy also attracts attention. During the early 20th century, piracy was far less common in Atlantic waters than during earlier centuries, but maritime crime had not disappeared entirely. Could the ship have been intercepted by criminals? If so, why was valuable property left behind? Pirates typically seek financial gain. The condition of the Caroline Deering does not clearly support such motives. Nevertheless, because investigators cannot fully account for every missing item, piracy remains part of the conversation. Environmental explanations offer another avenue of inquiry. The Outer Banks region is notorious for maritime hazards. Shifting sandbars, strong currents, fog, storms, and unpredictable weather have contributed to countless shipwrecks. Perhaps the crew encountered conditions that made remaining aboard seem impossible. A vessel grounded on dangerous shoals faces serious risks. Waves can break hulls apart. Rescue becomes difficult. In such circumstances, abandoning ship might appear reasonable. Yet this explanation still leaves unresolved questions regarding the fate of the crew after departure. The broader historical context complicates matters further. The early 1920s witnessed significant social and political changes. Smuggling operations existed along portions of the American coastline, particularly as Prohibition approached. Some investigators wondered whether criminal networks might somehow be connected to the disappearance. Others speculated about labor unrest or political motives. Such theories reflect contemporary concerns as much as evidence. Historical mysteries often absorb anxieties present within the societies investigating them. As weeks become months, the search for the missing crew produces little success. No definitive traces are discovered. The ocean, once again, proves capable of concealing evidence effectively. This absence of closure contributes enormously to the mystery's endurance. Cases involving clear outcomes eventually settle into history. Cases lacking conclusions remain open to interpretation. The Caroline Deering belongs firmly within the latter category. Public fascination grows because the story combines familiar elements with profound uncertainty. Readers can easily imagine life aboard a large sailing vessel. They understand concepts such as storms, navigation, and maritime labor. Yet the disappearance itself remains difficult to visualize. How does an entire crew vanish? What sequence of events transforms an active ship into an empty one? These questions invite imagination precisely because definitive answers are unavailable. Journalists play a major role in shaping perceptions of the case. Newspapers compete for readership by emphasizing dramatic details. Headlines highlight mystery. Reports compare the schooner to earlier ghost ships. Some accounts remain careful and factual. Others introduce speculation more freely. Over time, distinctions between documented evidence and popular interpretation become increasingly blurred. This process mirrors what happened with the Mary Celeste decades earlier. Historical mysteries often evolve as stories are retold. The Caroline Deering also becomes connected to a series of other maritime disappearances occurring around the same period. Several ships were lost or abandoned under unusual circumstances in the years surrounding the case. Investigators explored potential connections, wondering whether a larger pattern might exist. Most historians today view many of these incidents as unrelated, yet the possibility of connection fueled additional speculation at the time. People naturally search for patterns when confronting uncertainty. As evening settles over the North Carolina coast and waves continue breaking against the remains of the stranded schooner, the limitations of investigation become increasingly apparent. Authorities can examine physical evidence. They can interview witnesses. They can compare theories against known facts. Yet they cannot recover information that no longer exists. The final hours of the crew remain hidden beyond reach. In many ways, the Caroline Deering illustrates why ghost ship stories endure. They exist at the intersection of history and mystery. Real ships sailed. Real people disappeared. Real investigations occurred. Yet complete explanations remain elusive. The result is a narrative space where evidence and imagination coexist. Historians seek probability. Storytellers explore possibility. The ocean itself remains indifferent, holding secrets beneath its surface. As darkness falls and the Atlantic stretches endlessly beyond the horizon, the schooner joins the growing list of vessels whose stories ended without certainty. The Mary Celeste was not alone. Other ghost ships would follow, each carrying its own unanswered questions across lonely seas. And among the coldest and most unforgiving environments on Earth, another category of ghost ship awaited discovery. Vessels trapped and abandoned within the frozen world of the Arctic. Part 5: Arctic Ghost Ships. Vessels trapped by ice. As the sun rises only briefly above the distant horizon and pale light spreads across a frozen wilderness of ice and sea, we leave the comparatively temperate waters of the Atlantic behind and journey into one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. The Arctic has long occupied a special place in human imagination. Vast, remote, and extraordinarily dangerous, it challenged explorers, sailors, and navigators for centuries. Unlike the ghost ships of warmer oceans, Arctic ghost ships often tell stories shaped not by storms or piracy, but by ice itself. Here, the sea becomes something different. Water freezes into immense barriers capable of trapping even the strongest vessels. Entire expeditions disappear into frozen landscapes. Ships become imprisoned for months or years. Some are crushed, others are abandoned, and occasionally, long after their crews have vanished, these vessels reappear like ghosts emerging from another age. The Arctic therefore offers a unique chapter in the history of ghost ships, one where mystery, exploration, and survival intersect beneath endless skies and drifting ice. To understand these stories, imagine standing aboard an exploration vessel entering Arctic waters during the 19th century. The age of polar exploration is underway. Nations seek new trade routes, scientific knowledge, and geographic discoveries. Maps of northern regions remain incomplete. Vast areas are known only through scattered reports from earlier voyages. For many explorers, the Arctic represents both opportunity and challenge. Success could bring fame and prestige. Failure could mean death in one of the harshest environments known to humanity. At first, conditions may appear manageable. Summer sunlight illuminates open channels between floating ice. Seabirds circle overhead. The ocean remains navigable. Yet experienced sailors understand how quickly circumstances can change. Arctic ice is not static. Winds, currents, and temperature shifts move enormous masses of frozen water across the sea. Channels that appear open one day may close the next. Ships entering such regions must constantly adapt. Navigation becomes a contest between human planning and natural forces. The greatest danger is entrapment. Unlike storms, which eventually pass, ice can hold a vessel captive indefinitely. Imagine a ship slowly surrounded by drifting ice floes. At first, movement becomes more difficult. Progress slows. Then the ship stops entirely. Days pass. The ice thickens. Temperatures fall. Winter approaches. The vessel becomes a stationary outpost in a frozen world. crew members realize they may remain trapped for months. Such situations occurred repeatedly throughout Arctic history. Expeditions often entered northern waters expecting to find navigable passages, only to discover themselves imprisoned by conditions beyond their control. Ships designed for ordinary maritime travel struggled against immense pressures generated by moving ice. Wooden hulls creaked ominously. Timbers bent. In some cases, vessels survived. In others, they were crushed as ice closed around them with irresistible force. One of the most famous examples involves the lost expedition of Sir John Franklin. In 1845, Franklin departed England with two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, seeking the Northwest Passage through the Canadian Arctic. The voyage represented one of the most ambitious exploration efforts of its era. The ships carried experienced officers, advanced equipment, and provisions intended to support a lengthy journey. Expectations were high, yet after entering Arctic waters, the expedition disappeared. Imagine the concern growing back in Britain as months become years without news. Search expeditions are organized. Families wait for information. The Arctic gradually reveals fragments of the story, but never a complete account. Evidence eventually confirms that Franklin's ships became trapped in ice. Crew members abandoned the vessels. Many perished attempting to survive in an environment offering little mercy. Yet for decades, the exact fate of the ships themselves remained unknown. The mystery surrounding Erebus and Terror demonstrates a key feature of Arctic ghost ship stories. In many cases, the vessels outlast the people who sailed them. Ice preserves rather than destroys. Cold temperatures slow deterioration. Ships abandoned in frozen regions can remain remarkably intact for extended periods. This preservation creates opportunities for future discoveries. Decades, or even centuries later, explorers may encounter vessels seemingly frozen in time. The Arctic environment contributes powerfully to the ghostly atmosphere associated with such discoveries. Picture a ship trapped within ice under a pale northern sky. Snow covers the deck. Silence dominates the landscape. The crew is gone. Wind moves across frozen surfaces. The vessel remains, isolated and motionless within an immense wilderness. Few scenes better capture the idea of a ghost ship. Unlike vessels drifting freely across oceans, Arctic ghost ships appear suspended between past and present. Life aboard trapped ships was extraordinarily challenging. During winter, darkness could last for months. Temperatures plunged far below freezing. Supplies required careful management. Crews relied upon discipline and routine to maintain morale. Scientific observations, maintenance tasks, and structured activities helped combat monotony. Yet psychological pressures remained significant. Isolation, uncertainty, and environmental hardship tested even experienced explorers. Some ships were abandoned intentionally when survival aboard became impossible. Crews loaded essential supplies onto sledges or smaller boats and attempted overland escapes. Such decisions were rarely made lightly. Ships represented shelter, storage, and security. Leaving them behind meant accepting enormous risks. Yet Arctic conditions sometimes left no alternative. Once abandoned, the vessels entered a new phase of existence. They became artifacts awaiting discovery. As the brief Arctic day fades and shadows stretch across frozen seas, the significance of these stories becomes clearer. Arctic ghost ships differ from mysteries like the Mary Celeste because their disappearances often involve identifiable environmental causes. Ice traps vessels. Conditions deteriorate. Crews abandon ship. Yet despite this relative clarity, many questions remain unanswered. Exact sequences of events are often unknown. Personal experiences remain undocumented. The frozen landscape preserves evidence while simultaneously concealing it. The Arctic reminds us that ghost ships are not always products of sudden disappearance or unexplained vanishing. Sometimes they emerge from long struggles against overwhelming natural forces. Ships trapped in ice tell stories of endurance, exploration, and human ambition confronting environmental realities. Their silent decks and abandoned cabins still inspire fascination because they preserve moments when people stood at the edge of the known world, facing challenges few could fully comprehend. As pale Arctic twilight settles across the frozen horizon and drifting ice reflects faint shades of blue and silver, the story of Arctic ghost ships continues beyond the famous Franklin expedition. Throughout the centuries, explorers, whalers, traders, and adventurers entered northern waters seeking opportunity, knowledge, or new routes across the globe. Many succeeded. Others became part of the Arctic's long history of disappearances and abandoned vessels. What makes these stories especially compelling is the extraordinary way in which the Arctic preserves traces of the past. Unlike warmer environments where ships decay rapidly, frozen conditions can protect artifacts for generations. As a result, ghost ships sometimes reappear decades after they were lost, offering rare opportunities to connect directly with historical events. Imagine an explorer traveling through Arctic waters many years after an earlier expedition vanished. Ice conditions shift from season to season. Glaciers move. Currents alter landscapes. Occasionally, objects long hidden emerge unexpectedly. A piece of timber appears along a shoreline. A fragment of equipment is discovered embedded in ice. Such findings generate excitement because they provide clues regarding events that occurred long ago. In regions where written records are limited and witnesses absent, physical evidence becomes especially valuable. The search for Franklin's ships illustrates this process dramatically. For more than a century and a half, explorers, historians, archaeologists, and governments attempted to locate Erebus and Terror. The ships achieved legendary status. Their disappearance inspired books, articles, expeditions, and endless speculation. Yet despite extensive efforts, their exact locations remained unknown. The Arctic seemed determined to keep its secrets. Then, in the 21st century, remarkable discoveries occurred. Modern search teams using advanced technologies finally located the wrecks. The findings attracted international attention because they transformed one of history's most famous exploration mysteries. The ships were not merely historical symbols. They were real vessels resting beneath Arctic waters, preserved by conditions unlike those found elsewhere. Researchers suddenly gained access to physical evidence capable of revealing new information about events that had occurred more than 150 years earlier. Such discoveries highlight an important distinction between legend and history. Ghost ship stories often grow through speculation, yet archaeological evidence provides opportunities for verification. Artifacts recovered from Arctic sites can confirm, challenge, or refine existing theories. Researchers examine ship construction, preserved objects, environmental conditions, and other details to reconstruct past events. The process resembles detective work conducted across centuries. Beyond Franklin, numerous other Arctic vessels experienced similar fates. Whaling ships occasionally became trapped in ice while pursuing valuable catches. Commercial expeditions underestimated environmental risks. Explorers pushed farther north than conditions allowed. In many cases, crews abandoned vessels after concluding they could no longer be saved. Some escaped successfully, others did not. The resulting ghost ships remained scattered across northern waters, silent witnesses to human ambition and environmental power. The relationship between people and Arctic ice is central to these stories. In temperate regions, sailors often viewed water as the primary maritime environment. In the Arctic, ice becomes equally important. It shapes routes, determines seasons, and influences survival strategies. Ships entering such regions effectively navigate a landscape that alternates between liquid and solid states. This complexity creates challenges unlike those encountered elsewhere. Imagine a vessel trapped for an entire winter. Snow accumulates across decks. Darkness envelopes the ship for weeks at a time. Temperatures remain brutally low. Crew members depend upon stored supplies and careful planning. Hunting may supplement provisions. Maintenance becomes constant because equipment must withstand extreme conditions. Every decision carries significance. Small mistakes can produce serious consequences. Under such circumstances, survival itself becomes an achievement. The psychological dimension of Arctic exploration deserves attention as well. Isolation in northern regions differs from isolation at sea. Open oceans offer movement and changing horizons. Trapped ships remain stationary. Crews know they cannot simply sail away. Months may pass before conditions improve. This awareness creates unique pressures. Maintaining morale requires leadership, routine, and resilience. Historical accounts frequently emphasize the importance of discipline and cooperation under such circumstances. Ghost ships emerging from these environments often appear particularly haunting because they preserve evidence of daily life. Cabins contain personal belongings. Equipment remains where it was left. Tools, books, clothing, and supplies provide glimpses into vanished worlds. Visitors encountering such vessels sometimes describe the sensation that occupants might return at any moment. The Arctic's ability to slow decay contributes powerfully to this impression. At the same time, environmental preservation is never complete. Ice moves. Ships sink. Materials deteriorate gradually. Researchers therefore work carefully to document discoveries before conditions change further. Modern archaeology balances investigation with conservation, recognizing that these sites represent irreplaceable historical resources. The enduring fascination of Arctic ghost ships also reflects broader human interests. Exploration stories appeal because they involve journeys into unknown territory. People admire courage while recognizing risks. The Arctic symbolizes both possibility and danger. Ships lost there become symbols of ambition confronting natural limits. Their stories remind us that exploration often involves uncertainty and sacrifice. Yet the Arctic is only one source of ghost ships. Across the world's oceans, vessels have also been abandoned because of war, storms, mechanical failures, disease, and countless other challenges. Not every ghost ship emerges from mystery alone. Many reflect practical decisions made under difficult circumstances. In the next stage of our journey, we will examine these realities and explore why crews sometimes disappeared from ships that continued drifting long after their occupants were gone. The sea remains vast, and its stories are far from finished. Part 6: War, Storms, and Abandonment. Why crews sometimes vanished. As the morning sun rises over a calm and seemingly endless ocean, it is easy to imagine the sea as peaceful and predictable. Gentle waves roll beneath a bright sky. Seabirds circle overhead. A ship moves steadily toward a distant destination. Yet sailors throughout history understood a reality often hidden beneath such tranquil scenes. The ocean can change with astonishing speed. Calm conditions can give way to violent storms. Mechanical problems can escalate into emergencies. Illness can spread through isolated crews. Wars can transform commercial shipping routes into dangerous battlegrounds. While ghost ship stories often inspire thoughts of mystery and unexplained disappearances, many abandoned vessels resulted from practical decisions made during moments of crisis. To understand why ships were sometimes found drifting without crews, we must examine the realities of maritime danger. The sea has always been an environment where ordinary circumstances can become extraordinary with little warning, and the stories of many ghost ships begin not with mystery, but with survival. Imagine standing aboard a merchant vessel crossing the Atlantic during the 19th century. The voyage has progressed smoothly for weeks. The crew follows established routines. Cargo remains secure. Navigation proceeds according to plan. Then weather conditions begin changing. Clouds gather on the horizon. Winds strengthen gradually. Experienced sailors recognize warning signs. Preparations begin immediately. Sails are adjusted. Equipment is secured. Officers monitor conditions carefully. Everyone understands that storms at sea demand respect. Unlike modern ships equipped with advanced forecasting systems, earlier vessels often received little warning regarding severe weather. Captains relied upon observation, experience, and intuition. Even the most skilled mariners could be surprised by rapidly developing conditions. Hurricanes, cyclones, and powerful Atlantic storms possessed the ability to overwhelm ships of all sizes. Waves towered above decks. Winds tore sails apart. Visibility vanished beneath rain and spray. Under such circumstances, maintaining control of a vessel became an immense challenge. Many ghost ships originated during encounters with severe weather. Consider a scenario in which a ship sustains significant damage during a storm. Masts may break. Hulls may leak. Pumps struggle to remove incoming water. The crew faces difficult decisions. Remaining aboard offers shelter and access to supplies. Yet a sinking ship poses obvious risks. Lifeboats provide escape options, but expose occupants to dangers of their own. Determining the correct course of action requires judgment under pressure, often with incomplete information. History contains numerous examples of vessels abandoned because crews believed sinking was imminent. In some cases, these decisions proved tragically unnecessary. Damaged ships occasionally remained afloat long after their crews departed. Ocean currents and winds carried them across great distances. Later observers encountering such vessels might find evidence suggesting abandonment despite the ship's continued buoyancy. From a distance, the scene appears mysterious. Yet from the crew's perspective, the decision may have seemed entirely reasonable given available information. Mechanical failures created similar situations. Ships depend upon complex systems functioning reliably. During the age of sail, rigging, masts, pumps, and steering mechanisms all required constant maintenance. Later steamships introduced engines, boilers, and additional technical components. Failures could compromise safety significantly. A vessel losing steering capability during rough weather, for example, might face extreme danger. Crews confronting such problems had to balance risks carefully. Fire represented another serious threat. Few emergencies inspired greater fear among sailors. Ships carried flammable materials including wood, tar, rope, cargo, and fuel. A fire aboard a vessel at sea could spread rapidly, while remaining difficult to control. Even rumors of fire sometimes prompted drastic responses. Captains understood that delaying action could prove fatal. Consequently, some abandonments occurred because crews believed flames or explosions threatened immediate destruction. Disease also played an important role in maritime history. Before modern medicine, ships provided ideal environments for the spread of illness. Crew members lived in close quarters for extended periods. Medical resources remained limited. Outbreaks of infectious diseases occasionally devastated vessels. In extreme cases, sickness reduced crews to the point where maintaining normal operations became impossible. Historical records contain examples of ships found adrift after disease severely affected those aboard. The psychological impact of prolonged voyages deserves consideration as well. Isolation, fatigue, stress, and uncertainty influence human decision-making. Sailors often worked under demanding conditions for weeks or months. Sleep disruptions, poor weather, and constant responsibilities could erode judgment. Emergencies occurring under such circumstances became even more difficult to manage. Modern researchers studying maritime incidents frequently emphasize the importance of human factors alongside environmental conditions. War introduced additional complexities. During periods of conflict, merchant vessels faced threats from naval forces, privateers, submarines, and mines. Captains navigating wartime routes had to consider dangers extending beyond weather and mechanical issues. Ships damaged during attacks were sometimes abandoned. Crews evacuated into lifeboats hoping for rescue. In some cases, abandoned vessels remained afloat and drifted for considerable distances before being discovered. Imagine a merchant ship crossing the Atlantic during the First World War. The crew remains alert for signs of enemy submarines. Tension influences daily life. A sudden attack damages the vessel. The captain orders evacuation. Lifeboats are launched. Survivors hope to reach safety. Meanwhile, the ship refuses to sink. Days later, another vessel encounters the abandoned hulk drifting silently across open water. To observers unaware of earlier events, the scene might appear mysterious. Yet its origins lie within the realities of wartime survival. As the morning progresses and sunlight sparkles across calm seas, it becomes clear that many ghost ships reflect practical decisions made under extraordinary circumstances. Abandonment does not necessarily imply mystery. It often represents an attempt to survive perceived threats. The challenge for historians lies in determining which threats were real, which were perceived, and how circumstances unfolded afterward. The sea rarely provides complete records. Instead, investigators reconstruct events from fragments of evidence, always aware that human decisions occur within specific contexts. The stories of abandoned ships therefore reveal more than maritime mysteries. They illuminate how people respond to uncertainty, danger, and limited information. Captains and crews rarely possessed perfect knowledge. They acted according to what they believed at the time. Understanding this reality helps explain why vessels were sometimes found drifting alone long after those aboard had disappeared from sight. As afternoon sunlight stretches across the open ocean and gentle waves move beneath a clear sky, we continue exploring the realities behind many ghost ship stories. By this point in our journey, a pattern has begun to emerge. While some abandoned vessels remain genuinely mysterious, many can be understood through the challenges inherent in maritime life. The sea is vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving. Ships operate far from immediate assistance. Decisions must frequently be made under pressure. When viewed from this perspective, ghost ships become less supernatural and more deeply human. They represent moments when individuals confronted uncertainty and attempted to survive. Imagine a crew discovering that their vessel is taking on water faster than pumps can remove it. The situation may develop gradually. At first, officers monitor conditions calmly. Repairs are attempted. Additional crew members assist with pumping efforts. Yet as hours pass, concern grows. Water levels continue rising. Equipment begins failing. The captain must decide whether to remain aboard or prepare for evacuation. Such decisions rarely involve certainty. Abandoning ship too early may expose everyone to unnecessary risk. Waiting too long may eliminate escape options entirely. Historical investigations repeatedly demonstrate that perceptions matter. A crew believing their ship is doomed may abandon it even if later evidence suggests otherwise. Human beings make choices based upon available information rather than future outcomes. This distinction is crucial when interpreting ghost ship cases. Observers encountering an abandoned vessel afterward possess knowledge unavailable to those who left it. They see a ship still afloat. The crew saw a ship they feared was sinking. Both perspectives can be valid within their respective contexts. Weather remains one of the most influential factors shaping such decisions. Ocean storms possess immense power. Modern technologies improve forecasting, yet severe weather still challenges contemporary shipping. Earlier sailors faced these dangers with far fewer resources. A storm could destroy masts, damage hulls, flood compartments, and scatter equipment. Even if a vessel ultimately survived, conditions during the event may have appeared catastrophic. Crews operating amid darkness, towering waves, and violent winds often had little opportunity to assess long-term prospects accurately. Stories from maritime history frequently describe ships that seemed lost but later reappeared. Ocean currents and prevailing winds can carry abandoned vessels across astonishing distances. Some drift for weeks. Others remain afloat for months. A few travel hundreds or even thousands of miles before being discovered. Such journeys contribute significantly to ghost ship legends because they create dramatic contrasts between abandonment and rediscovery. The image of an empty vessel emerging unexpectedly from fog or appearing on the horizon captures imagination powerfully. Technological change has not eliminated these phenomena entirely. Modern ghost ships continue appearing occasionally. Fishing vessels, yachts, cargo ships, and other craft have been found abandoned under various circumstances. Contemporary investigations benefit from improved communication systems, satellite tracking, and forensic techniques. As a result, many modern cases are resolved more quickly than historical mysteries. Yet the underlying challenges remain familiar. Mechanical failures, severe weather, human error, and emergencies continue influencing maritime outcomes. The role of communication deserves particular attention. Before radio technology became widespread, ships at sea were effectively isolated. Information traveled only as fast as vessels themselves. Emergencies occurring far from land might remain unknown for weeks. Even after radio transformed maritime communication, technical failures and environmental conditions sometimes limited effectiveness. Modern systems reduce but do not eliminate isolation. The ocean remains a place where distance complicates rescue efforts. One especially fascinating aspect of ghost ship history involves the relationship between reality and storytelling. Maritime communities have always exchanged stories. Sailors share experiences in ports, aboard vessels, and through written accounts. Some stories emphasize practical lessons. Others highlight unusual events. Over time, details may become exaggerated or simplified. A difficult but understandable abandonment can gradually evolve into a mystery through repeated retelling. This process does not require deliberate deception. Human memory naturally emphasizes dramatic elements. Consider how an abandoned ship appears to observers. An empty vessel drifting alone presents a striking image. Personal belongings may remain aboard. Meals may have been interrupted. Equipment may be scattered. Such scenes invite speculation because they suggest sudden change. Yet everyday life contains countless unfinished actions. Emergencies rarely allow people to organize environments neatly before departing. What appears mysterious afterward may have felt chaotic and urgent at the time. The sea itself contributes to this ambiguity. Water destroys evidence. Currents move objects. Weather alters conditions. Witnesses may be unavailable. Investigators therefore work with incomplete information. Historical records often contain gaps. Even contemporary inquiries occasionally struggle to reconstruct events fully. These limitations create spaces where multiple interpretations remain possible. War provides particularly vivid examples. During the 20th century, numerous vessels were abandoned after attacks, collisions, or mechanical failures linked to military operations. Some were later recovered. Others drifted unattended. In a few cases, ships survived longer than expected, becoming temporary ghost ships before eventual sinking or salvage. Such incidents remind us that abandonment does not always mark the end of a vessel's journey. Sometimes the ship continues traveling even after the people depart. As afternoon slowly gives way to evening, the broader significance of ghost ships becomes clearer. They are not merely maritime curiosities. They are reminders of the challenges people faced while crossing oceans. Every abandoned vessel represents a moment when human beings confronted uncertainty and made decisions with limited information. Some choices proved wise. Others proved tragic. Most cannot be judged fairly without understanding the circumstances surrounding them. The stories of war, storms, mechanical failures, and abandonment help separate myth from reality. They reveal that many ghost ships emerge not from supernatural forces, but from ordinary dangers encountered under extraordinary conditions. Yet acknowledging practical explanations does not diminish their fascination. If anything, it enhances it. Real human experiences are often more compelling than fictional mysteries because they reflect genuine courage, fear, resilience, and uncertainty. As the sun approaches the horizon and golden light spreads across the sea, we prepare to leave behind the world of abandoned vessels and enter a different phase of our journey. We have explored famous ghost ships, Arctic mysteries, and the realities of maritime danger. Next, we will examine how legends formed around these stories and why sailors and storytellers transformed historical events into enduring myths. The ships themselves may be silent, but the stories they inspired continue sailing across generations. Part 7: Maritime Legends and Sailor Superstitions. How Ghost Ship Stories Spread. As evening settles across the ocean and the last light of the sun fades beyond the horizon, we enter a world where history and imagination begin to overlap. Throughout our journey, we have explored real ships, real crews, and real mysteries. We have followed the Mary Celeste across the Atlantic, examined the disappearance of the Carol A. Deering, and ventured into the frozen silence of Arctic ghost ships. Yet the stories that most people know today are often not exactly the stories that originally happened. Over time, maritime mysteries rarely remain unchanged. Sailors tell stories. Journalists write articles. Authors publish books. Generations repeat and reinterpret old accounts. Details are added, forgotten, exaggerated, or simplified. Gradually, history evolves into legend. This process is especially powerful at sea, where isolation, uncertainty, and danger have always encouraged storytelling. To understand why ghost ships became such enduring cultural symbols, we must explore the world of maritime legends and sailor superstitions, a world where the unknown often felt just beyond the edge of the lantern's glow. Imagine standing aboard a merchant vessel during the 18th century. Night has fallen. The crew has completed much of the day's work. The sea stretches endlessly into darkness. Above, countless stars fill the sky. Wind moves gently through the rigging. Sailors gather near lantern light, sharing stories to pass the time. In such moments, storytelling becomes far more than entertainment. It serves practical, social, and psychological purposes. Stories preserve experience. They communicate warnings. They strengthen group identity. They provide explanations for events that seem difficult to understand. Long before radio, television, or the internet, oral traditions connected maritime communities across oceans. The sea itself encourages imagination. Unlike life on land, ocean travel often involves extended periods without direct contact with the outside world. Sailors spend weeks or months surrounded by water and sky. Visibility may be limited by fog, storms, or darkness. Strange sights occasionally appear. Unusual weather phenomena, unfamiliar marine animals, distant lights, and optical illusions all contribute to an environment where mystery feels possible. Human beings naturally seek explanations for unexpected experiences. When complete information is unavailable, imagination frequently fills the gaps. Superstitions therefore become common within maritime culture. Sailors historically developed countless beliefs regarding luck, weather, and omens. Some superstitions emerged from practical observations. Others reflected cultural traditions passed between generations. Certain birds were considered signs of fortune or misfortune. Particular actions aboard ship were thought to influence outcomes. Names, symbols, and rituals acquired special significance. Whether individuals believe these ideas literally varied considerably, but the traditions themselves became deeply embedded within maritime life. Ghost ship stories fit naturally within this environment. Consider the emotional impact of encountering an abandoned vessel at sea. The sight is unusual and unsettling. Ships are designed to carry people. When a vessel appears without its crew, it challenges expectations immediately. Questions arise. What happened? Where did everyone go? Why was the ship abandoned? In some cases, answers are unavailable. The resulting uncertainty creates fertile ground for storytelling. Imagine sailors returning to port after encountering a ghost ship. Friends and family ask questions. Journalists seek interviews. Fellow mariners express curiosity. The story is retold repeatedly. Each retelling emphasizes certain details while minimizing others. Dramatic moments receive special attention because they capture listeners' interest. Over time, the narrative becomes polished through repetition. What begins as a report gradually acquires characteristics associated with legend. The Mary Celeste provides an excellent example of this process. Historical records document many aspects of the case, yet popular versions often contain details unsupported by evidence. Stories emerge describing meals left untouched on tables, half-finished conversations, or signs of sudden disappearance. These images proved memorable because they intensified the mystery. Readers found them compelling. As a result, they spread widely despite limited documentation. The legend grew larger than the original event. This phenomenon is neither unusual nor unique to maritime history. Human societies have always transformed significant events into stories reflecting cultural interests and values. Legends simplify complexity. They emphasize themes audiences find meaningful. In the case of ghost ships, common themes include isolation, uncertainty, survival, and the power of nature. These themes resonate because they address fundamental human concerns. The 19th century witnessed dramatic growth in the circulation of such stories. Newspapers expanded rapidly. Literacy rates increased. Publishing became more accessible. Reports from distant locations reached larger audiences than ever before. Maritime mysteries therefore spread far beyond the communities directly involved. Readers living hundreds or thousands of miles from the ocean could encounter ghost ship stories through newspapers, magazines, and books. The sea became a source of fascination even for those who had never seen it. Authors played a particularly important role. Some writers approached ghost ship stories as journalism. Others treated them as opportunities for creative interpretation. Fiction inspired by real events blurred distinctions between fact and imagination. Readers sometimes struggled to separate documented evidence from literary embellishment. This ambiguity contributed significantly to the enduring popularity of maritime mysteries. Sailor superstitions also influenced interpretation. When unusual events occurred, some individuals viewed them through cultural frameworks emphasizing omens, curses, or supernatural forces. Modern audiences may regard such explanations skeptically, yet they were meaningful within historical contexts. People interpret experiences according to available cultural tools. Superstitions provided ways of understanding uncertainty in environments where complete information was often impossible to obtain. As darkness deepens and stars reflect across calm waters, it becomes clear that ghost ship stories spread not simply because they involve mysteries, but because they satisfy deeper psychological and cultural needs. They offer narratives capable of transforming uncertainty into meaning. They connect communities through shared stories. They preserve memories of unusual events while adapting them to changing audiences. The result is a rich tradition where history and legend coexist. The ships themselves may have disappeared long ago, yet the stories continue traveling from generation to generation. Like vessels carried by ocean currents, narratives move through time, changing subtly as they go. Understanding this process helps explain why ghost ships remain so powerful within cultural imagination. Their influence extends far beyond the specific incidents that inspired them. As moonlight spreads across the open sea and the gentle creaking of a ship's timbers echoes through the night, we continue exploring the remarkable journey by which maritime stories become legends. Every generation inherits narratives from those who came before. Some stories fade, others endure. Ghost ship tales belong firmly within the latter category. For centuries, they have captivated sailors, writers, historians, and ordinary readers alike. Their persistence raises an important question. Why do certain maritime mysteries remain so memorable while countless other incidents are forgotten? The answer lies partly in the unique relationship between the ocean and human imagination. Imagine a sailor returning home after months at sea. Family members gather eagerly to hear news and experiences. Friends ask about distant ports, storms, and unusual encounters. The sailor begins describing a strange vessel spotted on the horizon, a ship drifting without visible crew. Listeners immediately become attentive because the situation violates expectations. Human beings are naturally drawn toward anomalies. Ordinary voyages may be important historically, yet unusual events attract greater emotional attention. The ghost ship therefore enters conversation already possessing narrative advantages. Once a story begins circulating, social dynamics influence its development. Listeners remember dramatic details more easily than routine information. Storytellers learn which elements generate strong reactions. Subsequent retellings emphasize those elements accordingly. This process does not require intentional exaggeration. It emerges naturally from human communication. People simplify complex events. They organize information into coherent narratives. They focus upon memorable moments. Over time, subtle changes accumulate. The maritime world historically provided ideal conditions for such transformations. Sailors traveled between ports separated by vast distances. Information moved through networks of conversation extending across oceans. A story told in one harbor might reappear months later in another, altered slightly by each retelling. Unlike written records, oral traditions remain flexible. Details adapt to local interests and cultural expectations. This flexibility helps stories survive because they remain relevant to new audiences. Ghost ships possess particular advantages within this environment because they combine mystery with open-endedness. Many maritime incidents have clear conclusions. A ship sinks during a storm. A vessel reaches its destination successfully. Such events may be significant, yet they leave limited room for speculation. Ghost ships are different. Their defining characteristic is uncertainty. Missing information invites interpretation. People naturally imagine possibilities when definitive answers are unavailable. This tendency becomes especially powerful when discussing events occurring at sea. Oceans conceal evidence effectively. Witnesses may be absent. Physical traces disappear. Distances complicate investigation. As a result, maritime mysteries often remain unresolved longer than comparable incidents on land. The absence of certainty creates narrative space where legends can flourish. Literature amplified these processes dramatically. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, maritime adventure stories enjoyed enormous popularity. Readers were fascinated by exploration, distant locations, and life at sea. Authors frequently drew inspiration from real events while adding fictional elements. Some works aimed primarily to entertain. Others blended journalism and storytelling. The boundaries between fact and fiction sometimes became difficult to distinguish. One particularly influential example involves the Mary Celeste. Decades after the ship's discovery, writers produced fictionalized versions of the story introducing dramatic details absent from historical records. These editions proved memorable and circulated widely. Many people encountered the legend before encountering the documented facts. Consequently, fictional elements became integrated into public understanding of the case. Similar processes affected other ghost ship stories as well. Visual media later expanded their reach further. Illustrations, films, documentaries, television programs, and digital content introduced maritime mysteries to new audiences. Each medium emphasized different aspects of the stories. Some focused upon historical investigation. Others highlighted suspense and atmosphere. Regardless of approach, ghost ships remained compelling because they combined real history with unanswered questions. Sailor superstitions continued influencing interpretation throughout these developments. Maritime culture contains rich traditions concerning luck, fate, and the supernatural. While many sailors approached such beliefs pragmatically or humorously, the traditions themselves persisted because they addressed genuine uncertainties. Life at sea involved risks beyond individual control. Superstitions provided frameworks for understanding unpredictable events. Ghost ship stories fit naturally within these frameworks, particularly when conventional explanations seemed incomplete. Modern historians often emphasize the importance of separating evidence from legend. This distinction is valuable because it helps reconstruct actual events. Yet legends deserve attention as well. They reveal how societies interpret uncertainty. They demonstrate which themes resonate across generations. The persistence of ghost ship stories tells us something important about human psychology. People remain fascinated by mysteries not merely because they lack answers, but because they encourage imagination. The ocean serves as a particularly powerful setting for such fascination. Even today, despite technological advances, vast portions of the world's oceans remain difficult to observe continuously. The sea retains an element of unpredictability. Ships still encounter storms. Communication systems occasionally fail. Unexpected events occur. While modern investigations often resolve mysteries more effectively than their historical counterparts, the underlying sense of wonder remains. As the night deepens and moonlight shimmers across endless water, we can appreciate ghost ships from two complementary perspectives. They are historical phenomena involving real vessels and real people. They are also cultural symbols shaped by storytelling. One perspective seeks evidence, the other explores meaning. Together they explain why these stories endure. The legends surrounding ghost ships spread because they satisfy enduring human interests. They combine adventure, danger, mystery, and exploration. They invite audiences to imagine what happened beyond the limits of available evidence. They transform isolated maritime incidents into narratives capable of crossing generations and oceans alike. Yet as fascinating as legends may be, historians continue searching for practical explanations. In the next stage of our journey, we will examine what researchers believe today about ghost ships and abandoned vessels. We will explore how modern scholarship, archaeology, maritime science, and historical investigation have reshaped understanding of these mysteries. The legends will remain, but we will now turn our attention toward the realities that often lie beneath them. Part 8. What historians believe today. The real dangers of ocean travel. As the first light of dawn begins to spread across a calm ocean and the stars gradually fade from the sky, we move away from the world of legends and sailor tales and enter the realm of historical investigation. Throughout our journey, we have encountered ghost ships that drifted across oceans without crews, vessels trapped in Arctic ice, abandoned schooners found upon dangerous shoals, and mysteries that captured public imagination for generations. Yet one of the most important lessons learned by modern historians is that extraordinary stories do not always require extraordinary explanations. In many cases, the true causes behind maritime mysteries are rooted in the realities of life at sea. The ocean is beautiful, vast, and essential to human history, but it is also one of the most challenging environments people have ever attempted to navigate. Storms, mechanical failures, navigational errors, disease, isolation, human decision-making, and simple misfortune have shaped countless voyages. Today, historians, archaeologists, maritime researchers, and oceanographers approach ghost ship stories not as supernatural puzzles, but as opportunities to understand how real people responded to difficult circumstances in one of the most unpredictable settings on Earth. Imagine a historian examining the records of a famous ghost ship in a modern archive. Instead of relying upon rumors or sensational newspaper headlines, the researcher studies ship logs, insurance documents, weather reports, maritime regulations, witness statements, cargo manifests, and official investigations. Each document contributes a small piece of a larger puzzle. Historical research rarely produces dramatic revelations. More often, it involves careful analysis of evidence collected from many sources. Yet through this process, scholars can reconstruct events with surprising accuracy. The goal is not to eliminate mystery entirely, but to distinguish between what is known, what is probable, and what remains uncertain. The Mary Celeste provides an excellent example of how historical understanding evolves. For many years, popular accounts emphasized mysterious details suggesting sudden disappearance. Meals supposedly remained untouched. Personal belongings were described as abandoned without explanation. Some stories implied supernatural intervention. Yet modern research paints a more nuanced picture. Historians examining original documents discovered that many famous details were exaggerated or invented long after the event. The actual evidence suggests a scenario involving practical concerns rather than paranormal forces. While certainty remains impossible, many researchers believe Captain Briggs may have ordered a temporary evacuation because he feared danger associated with the cargo of industrial alcohol. The decision, if that is what occurred, would reflect reasonable caution rather than inexplicable behavior. This approach illustrates a broader principle within historical scholarship. Human actions generally make sense when viewed within their original contexts. Modern observers sometimes judge historical decisions according to information unavailable to those making them. A captain facing uncertain conditions at sea does not possess the benefit of hindsight. He must act based upon immediate observations, limited evidence, and perceived risks. Understanding this reality helps explain many ghost ship cases. Weather emerges repeatedly as a critical factor. Modern meteorology has transformed understanding of storms, ocean currents, and atmospheric conditions. Researchers can often reconstruct historical weather patterns using records, climate data, and scientific models. These reconstructions reveal that many maritime incidents occurred under far more challenging conditions than later observers realized. Storms capable of damaging vessels, disrupting navigation, or creating panic were often more common than historical summaries suggest. The ocean's power remains difficult to appreciate fully from written descriptions alone. Navigation itself posed enormous challenges throughout much of maritime history. Before satellite systems and modern electronics, determining precise location at sea required skill, experience, and favorable conditions. Errors accumulated easily. Cloud cover could prevent celestial observations. Instruments could malfunction. Charts might contain inaccuracies. A small navigational mistake sometimes produced significant consequences. Ships approaching coastlines faced particular dangers because shallow waters, reefs, and shoals often remained poorly mapped. The human element also receives greater attention from modern researchers. Earlier investigations sometimes focused primarily upon physical evidence, while overlooking psychological and social factors. Contemporary scholarship recognizes that people operate within complex environments shaped by stress, fatigue, uncertainty, and interpersonal relationships. Crews aboard ships often endured demanding conditions for extended periods. Sleep deprivation, illness, poor weather, and isolation could influence judgment significantly. Understanding these pressures provides valuable context for interpreting decisions that might otherwise appear puzzling. Disease played a larger role in maritime history than many people realize. Ships crossing oceans carried not only cargo and passengers, but also pathogens. Before advances in medicine, outbreaks of illness could spread rapidly through confined quarters. Even relatively minor diseases might become serious when treatment options remained limited. Historical records contain numerous examples of voyages disrupted by health crises. Some vessels lost significant portions of their crews. Others altered routes or schedules in response to medical emergencies. Such realities remind us that ghost ship mysteries occurred within broader patterns of maritime risk. Archaeology has contributed important insights as well. Discoveries of shipwrecks and abandoned vessels allow researchers to examine physical evidence directly. Artifacts recovered from maritime sites reveal information about construction methods, cargoes, daily life, and environmental conditions. In some cases, archaeological findings have confirmed historical accounts. In others, they have challenged long-standing assumptions. The combination of documentary research and physical evidence provides a powerful framework for understanding past events. Technological advances continue expanding investigative possibilities. Sonar mapping, underwater robotics, satellite imagery, and forensic analysis enable researchers to explore sites previously inaccessible. Ships lost for centuries have been located and studied. New discoveries occasionally resolve historical debates or generate fresh questions. The field remains dynamic because evidence continues emerging from archives, archaeological sites, and scientific research. Yet despite these advances, uncertainty persists. Historians are careful to acknowledge limits. Not every mystery can be solved completely. Evidence may be incomplete. Witnesses may be unavailable. Critical information may have been lost. The ocean preserves some traces while destroying others. Responsible scholarship therefore balances curiosity with caution. Researchers seek explanations supported by evidence rather than speculation. As sunlight spreads across the sea and illuminates the horizon, a clearer picture of ghost ships begins to emerge. They are not primarily stories about supernatural forces or impossible events. They are stories about human beings confronting difficult circumstances in challenging environments. Storms, navigational problems, equipment failures, disease, and difficult decisions explain many mysteries more effectively than dramatic alternatives. This realization does not diminish the fascination of ghost ships. Instead, it grounds their stories in the realities of maritime history, making them both more understandable and, in many ways, more compelling. As the morning progresses and gentle sunlight reflects across open water, we continue examining what modern historians believe about ghost ships and maritime mysteries. One of the most significant changes in recent scholarship involves a shift from asking, "What strange force caused this?" to asking, "What conditions made this outcome possible?" This change may seem subtle, but it transforms how ghost ship stories are interpreted. Rather than beginning with mystery and searching for sensational explanations, researchers begin with evidence and examine the ordinary dangers sailors faced. The result is a deeper understanding not only of specific cases, but also of maritime life itself. Imagine standing aboard a merchant ship during the 19th century. From a modern perspective, the voyage may appear adventurous. Yet for those actually aboard, daily life involved constant management of risk. Weather could change suddenly. Equipment required maintenance. Navigation demanded concentration. Cargo needed monitoring. Illness threatened crews. The sea itself remained unpredictable. Every successful voyage represented the culmination of countless decisions made correctly. Maritime history, therefore, contains many stories of resilience and competence alongside occasional incidents that became famous because something went wrong. Ghost ships often emerge from situations where multiple factors combine. Historians increasingly emphasize this complexity. Rarely does a single cause explain an entire mystery. Instead, events develop through interactions among environmental conditions, human decisions, technical issues, and chance. Consider a hypothetical vessel encountering deteriorating weather. Strong winds damage equipment. Navigation becomes difficult. Fatigue affects judgment. Concerns about cargo safety increase. None of these factors alone may justify abandonment. Together, however, they create circumstances where difficult decisions become understandable. The concept of perceived risk remains especially important. Modern investigations repeatedly demonstrate that people act according to what they believe is happening, not necessarily what is actually happening. A captain who thinks his vessel is about to explode, sink, or break apart may order evacuation even if later evidence suggests the threat was less severe than feared. Such decisions should be evaluated within the context of available information rather than eventual outcomes. Historians therefore attempt to reconstruct what individuals knew at specific moments rather than judging actions solely through hindsight. Research into maritime psychology has further enriched understanding. Long voyages create unique social environments. Crews live and work together in confined spaces. The ocean's physical characteristics also play crucial roles. Currents, winds, tides, and weather systems can move abandoned vessels across vast distances. A ship discovered far from where it was abandoned may appear mysterious unless these processes are understood. Oceanography has provided valuable insights into how vessels drift. Researchers can model likely routes based upon environmental conditions, helping reconstruct events more accurately than earlier investigators could. Another important development involves re-evaluating historical sources. Many ghost ship stories entered popular culture through newspapers, magazines, and books written for general audiences. Such sources are valuable, but must be interpreted carefully. Journalists often emphasize dramatic elements. Writers occasionally introduced embellishments. Over time, repeated retellings sometimes transformed speculation into accepted fact. Historians therefore compare popular accounts with official documents whenever possible. This process frequently reveals discrepancies between legend and evidence. The Mary Celeste remains one of the clearest examples. Much of what many people think they know about the case originates from later retellings rather than original records. When researchers returned to primary sources, they discovered a more ordinary, yet still fascinating story. Similar re-evaluations have occurred with other maritime mysteries. The goal is not to eliminate wonder, but to replace misconceptions with evidence-based understanding. Modern technology has also reduced the frequency of traditional ghost ships, though it has not eliminated maritime mysteries entirely. Satellite navigation, radio communication, emergency beacons, weather forecasting, and international rescue systems make it more difficult for ships to disappear without explanation. Yet incidents still occur. Fishing vessels vanish. Yachts are found abandoned. Cargo ships encounter emergencies. The ocean remains capable of producing surprises despite technological progress. These contemporary cases often reinforce historical lessons. Investigations reveal how quickly circumstances can change at sea. They demonstrate the importance of human judgment under pressure. They remind us that uncertainty remains part of maritime experience. Technology reduces risks but cannot eliminate them completely. Nature retains considerable power. Perhaps the most important conclusion reached by modern historians is that ghost ships should be understood within broader contexts of maritime history. They are not isolated curiosities. They are products of the same forces shaping ordinary voyages: weather, geography, technology, economics, and human behavior. What distinguishes them is not necessarily their causes, but the absence of complete explanations. Most maritime incidents leave enough evidence to reconstruct events. Ghost ships are memorable because crucial pieces of information remain missing. The work of historians, archaeologists, and scientists has illuminated many aspects of these mysteries. Yet some questions remain unanswered. And perhaps that is fitting. The ocean is vast. Its history spans thousands of years. Complete certainty is not always possible. What matters is the effort to understand, to examine evidence carefully, and to appreciate the realities faced by those who traveled across the world's waters. As the sunlight glitters across the waves and our voyage continues, one final question remains. Even after explanations are considered and myths are separated from facts, why do ghost ships continue captivating us? Why do abandoned vessels drifting across lonely seas still inspire curiosity generations later? To answer that question, we must explore the enduring appeal of maritime mysteries and the timeless fascination of the ocean itself. Part 9. The enduring mystery of empty ships. Why the sea still fascinates us. As the afternoon sun slowly begins its descent toward the horizon and the ocean glitters beneath a sky of soft gold and blue, we arrive at the final chapter of our journey through the world of ghost ships. We have explored abandoned vessels discovered adrift upon lonely seas. We have followed investigators searching for answers aboard the Mary Celeste, examined the strange fate of the Carol A. Deering, ventured into the frozen silence of Arctic ghost ships, and separated legend from evidence. Yet one question remains. If many ghost ship stories can be explained through storms, navigation errors, environmental conditions, human decisions, and the ordinary dangers of maritime life, why do they continue captivating us? Why do abandoned ships drifting across oceans remain among the most enduring mysteries in popular culture? The answer lies not only in the stories themselves, but also in humanity's relationship with the sea. The ocean has always represented something larger than geography. It symbolizes distance, uncertainty, possibility, exploration, and the unknown. Ghost ships occupy a unique place within that symbolic world because they remind us that even in an age of maps, satellites, and scientific understanding, some mysteries continue to resist complete explanation. Imagine standing alone on the deck of a ship crossing the Atlantic at sunset. The horizon stretches endlessly in every direction. No land is visible. The sea appears boundless. Despite centuries of exploration and technological advancement, the experience remains humbling. Human beings are naturally drawn toward environments that inspire awe. Mountains, deserts, forests, and oceans all possess this quality. Yet the ocean is unique because it combines immense scale with constant movement. Unlike landscapes fixed in place, the sea changes continuously. Waves rise and fall. Storms form and disappear. Currents shift beneath the surface. The environment never remains exactly the same. This dynamism contributes significantly to its enduring fascination. Ghost ships emerge from this setting as symbols of absence. A normal ship represents activity. Crews work, navigate, communicate, and maintain routines. An abandoned ship represents the sudden disappearance of those activities. The vessel remains, but the people are gone. This contrast creates a powerful emotional effect. Human beings are highly sensitive to signs of absence. Empty buildings, deserted streets, and abandoned objects often evoke curiosity because they suggest stories left unfinished. Ghost ships operate according to the same principle. They invite questions. Who was here? What happened? Why did they leave? The psychological appeal of such questions should not be underestimated. Human beings seek explanations. We are pattern-seeking creatures. When information is incomplete, we naturally attempt to fill gaps. Mysteries therefore engage imagination because they resist closure. A solved problem may be satisfying, but an unsolved one remains active in the mind. Ghost ships endure because many cases lack definitive conclusions. Evidence exists, yet not enough to remove uncertainty entirely. The result is a balance between knowledge and mystery that continues attracting attention. The sea amplifies this effect because it conceals evidence so effectively. On land, events often leave extensive traces. Witnesses may be present. Physical evidence remains accessible. Maritime incidents occur within environments where information can disappear quickly. Waves erase tracks. Storms scatter debris. Currents carry objects away. Distances complicate investigation. Historians frequently confront gaps in the record when studying maritime history. Ghost ships represent extreme examples of this challenge. They preserve some clues while withholding others. Literature, art, and storytelling have reinforced these themes for centuries. Writers recognized early that abandoned ships possess extraordinary narrative power. A vessel drifting alone across open water immediately captures attention. It combines familiar elements with uncertainty. Readers and audiences can imagine themselves aboard such a ship. They understand its intended purpose. yet its current state violates expectations. The resulting tension drives curiosity. Consider how often oceans appear within myths and legends worldwide. Ancient cultures viewed seas as boundaries between known and unknown worlds. Mariners ventured beyond horizons into regions filled with possibility and danger. Stories of lost ships, mysterious islands, and unexplained encounters emerged naturally from these experiences. Ghost ships belong to this broader tradition. They are modern expressions of ancient themes concerning exploration and uncertainty. The endurance of the Mary Celeste illustrates this phenomenon clearly. Historians have proposed plausible explanations. Researchers have corrected misconceptions. Yet public interest remains strong. The case continues appearing in books, documentaries, and discussions. Why? Because the mystery is not solely about what happened aboard the ship. It is also about the idea of an empty vessel crossing the Atlantic Ocean alone. The image itself possesses symbolic power independent of specific explanations. Modern technology has changed many aspects of maritime life, yet fascination with ghost ships persists. Satellite tracking systems monitor vessel movements. Communication technologies connect ships and shore continuously. Search and rescue capabilities have improved dramatically. Despite these advances, people remain intrigued by historical mysteries. Perhaps this reflects recognition that uncertainty can never be eliminated entirely. Knowledge expands, but questions remain. The ocean itself encourages such humility. More than 2/3 of Earth's surface is covered by water. Vast regions remain difficult to observe continuously. Deep oceans contain environments largely unexplored. Even today, researchers make new discoveries regularly. The sea reminds us that complete understanding is not always possible. Ghost ships fit naturally within this perspective because they occupy spaces between certainty and mystery. As the sun moves lower toward the horizon and long reflections stretch across the water, we begin to appreciate that ghost ships are about more than abandoned vessels. They are stories about human curiosity. They reflect our desire to understand events beyond direct observation. They remind us that history often survives in fragments rather than complete narratives. Most importantly, they connect us to generations of sailors, explorers, and travelers who faced the same vast ocean and wondered what lay beyond the next horizon. As evening approaches and the sea becomes a mirror of deep gold and fading light, our voyage through the history of ghost ships reaches its final destination. Throughout this journey, we have examined famous mysteries, historical investigations, maritime dangers, sailor traditions, and modern interpretations. We have seen how abandoned ships moved from reality into legend, and how historians worked to separate fact from fiction. Yet perhaps the greatest lesson offered by ghost ship stories is not about the ships themselves. It is about the enduring relationship between humanity and the unknown. Imagine a lighthouse keeper standing watch along a remote coastline centuries ago. Night falls. Waves crash against rocks below. Far beyond the reach of the lantern's beam, ships cross dark waters carrying crews toward distant destinations. Most voyages pass without incident. Some encounter storms. A few disappear from history almost entirely. The lighthouse keeper cannot know which ships will arrive safely and which will become stories told for generations. This uncertainty has always been part of maritime life. The sea connects places while simultaneously reminding people of how little control they possess over certain forces. Ghost ships occupy a special position within this relationship because they represent unfinished narratives. Most historical events have identifiable endings. Battles conclude. Voyages end. Ships reach ports or sink beneath waves. Ghost ships are different. They leave questions behind. Even when probable explanations exist, some details remain unknown. The missing crew of the Mary Celeste never returned to explain their decisions. The final moments aboard many abandoned vessels remain beyond recovery. These absences create spaces where imagination continues operating long after the events themselves have passed. Modern historians often emphasize that uncertainty should not be confused with supernatural mystery. This distinction is important. A lack of complete information does not imply impossible causes. Yet acknowledging practical explanations does not diminish the emotional impact of ghost ship stories. In many ways, understanding the real dangers faced by sailors makes these narratives even more compelling. Real people confronted storms, isolation, illness, mechanical failures, navigational challenges, and difficult decisions. Their experiences require no embellishment to be remarkable. The ocean's role within human history further explains the persistence of these stories. For thousands of years, maritime travel connected civilizations. Trade routes crossed seas. Explorers expanded geographic knowledge. Migrations reshaped societies. Countless lives depended upon ships and sailors. The sea served as both pathway and barrier. It enabled extraordinary achievements while presenting constant risks. Ghost ships remind us of this duality. They emerge from the same environment that facilitated exploration, commerce, and cultural exchange. There is also something deeply human about preserving mysteries. Not every question receives a final answer. Historians, scientists, and investigators work diligently to reconstruct the past, yet evidence sometimes remains incomplete. Ghost ships illustrate this reality clearly. They encourage humility by demonstrating the limits of certainty. They remind us that history is not merely a collection of facts, but an ongoing process of interpretation based upon available evidence. Interestingly, many ghost ship stories become less frightening and more reflective when examined carefully. Popular culture often portrays them as eerie or supernatural. Historical research reveals something different. Behind every abandoned vessel stood people making decisions under difficult circumstances. Captains weighed risks. Crews sought survival. Families waited for news. These human experiences transform ghost ships from abstract mysteries into personal stories. The ships become memorials to courage, uncertainty, and resilience. As twilight deepens, we can also appreciate the beauty present within these narratives. Ghost ships are not only stories of loss, they are stories of discovery. Investigators searched for answers. Archaeologists located long-lost wrecks. Historians pieced together fragments of evidence. Modern technologies revealed details hidden for generations. The pursuit of understanding became part of the story itself. In this sense, every ghost ship mystery continues producing knowledge long after the original event. The enduring appeal of these stories therefore rests upon several foundations. They involve real historical events. They unfold within dramatic environments. They contain unanswered questions. They reveal aspects of human nature. And they connect us to the vastness of the ocean, an environment that continues inspiring wonder despite centuries of study. Few subjects combine all these elements so effectively. As the final light fades from the horizon and stars begin appearing above the calm sea, the image of the ghost ship remains. A vessel drifts across open water. Its sails move gently in the wind. No crew stands watch. No voices echo across the deck. The ship continues onward beneath the night sky, carrying its story through history. Whether its mystery has been solved completely or only partially matters less than the fact that it continues inspiring curiosity. And perhaps that is why ghost ships endure. They remind us that the world remains larger than our understanding, They invite us to ask questions, seek evidence, and imagine possibilities. They connect the practical realities of maritime history with the timeless human desire to explore the unknown. Long after the ships themselves have vanished, their stories continue sailing across generations, carried not by wind or current, but by memory, curiosity, and wonder. As darkness settles over the ocean and our journey comes to an end, the sea remains what it has always been: vast, beautiful, unpredictable, and filled with stories waiting to be discovered. Some mysteries may eventually be solved. Others may remain unanswered forever. Yet the fascination endures, just as the waves continue moving across the horizon, carrying echoes of ghost ships through the endless waters of history.